As I'm working on my buddy Furrean here, I started working on his base, and it looks pretty horrible. I tried to do a little sandy thing, and I painted over a black primed base, and it looks pretty junky. It's a complicated base to paint because there's all these little nooks and crannies where the ground needs to be done, and I guess I'm just not used to painting with a horizontal mind frame. Vertically, you have different kinds of issues, but so this is a different thing altogether. So what I should have done is I should have started from the bottom up. So make sure I'm mostly happy with the stuff that's happening on the ground cover, and then started working some of the pieces that were kind of more elevated, kind of more raised off the ground. So I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to resolve this. I think I may just need to resort to using some of the texture paint, kind of like I did with the other Space Marine heroes, Terminator. And the texture paint will allow me to kind of hide a lot of these imperfections, and it would still look pretty decent. And then I can kind of go over and paint over some of this. Now, I'm sure I could salvage this, right? I could, if I wanted to just use paint, right? Because there's a lot of these bolter shells. I assume these are bolter shells. It's maybe hard to pick out on this base, but I would love to be able to have those included in the base of this model, since he's using this pew pew spewer. But I'm just not sure I'll be able to do that. It's definitely not at my skill level. I think it's a lesson for the next one of these I do. If I want to just use paint, I'll go that route. So I think the next step is just going to be, I'm going to use some texture paint, build it up, let it dry, and then work on painting some of these other guys. I mean, the texture paint itself is going to have some issues because of all these nooks and crannies, but I think I'm going to give that a shot. Yeah, I haven't actually used it successfully yet, but since I've got another texture paint success under my belt, I'm going to give my hand at this. And I think the red's going to provide a very nice contrast. Although I guess you don't actually shake these up before use, do you? Okay, I finally found a must-use case for this painting handle. For the most part, I can take it or leave it. Although once the model is more built up and I'm just kind of detailing, this comes in handy. But for the most part, I don't paint when the model is on the base. So this handle only really works if it's the model's attached to the base. But now that I'm just working on the base, I think that might work a little better. All right. I don't know whether I did a good job or a bad job on this. This texture paint, so far as I can tell, is one of those deals that you really don't get a good sense for until after it dries. So, let's cross our fingers and hope this works all right. Time to do a little bit more work. And so this is the left arm of that Terminator, and you notice how I was able to get a chapter insignia, chapter-specific insignia on that pauldron. I bought an extra little bit there and attached it to the pauldron, and I think it looks pretty neat. I won't know really for sure until once I paint it, but so far, I can kind of dig it. So here's what my base looks like now. The Martian Ironcrust is dried, and I gave the concrete looking pieces, or the marble looking pieces, I give them another coat with the white. I went and did the shingles in this yellow. Obviously I need a few more coats, and then I need to do a wash on the concrete, but it looks better than I thought, not as good as I was hoping. And yeah, I mean, I still have to touch up some of the errors, like you'll see some crud there. There's a little piece of white on the saboton, the boot. Is it a saboton? I think it's a saboton. Oh, and I haven't, oh, never mind. I was like, I thought that right there was like I dropped a white paint on something, but no, there's a brick there. I might need to kind of scrape away some of the Martian crust so that it looks more like a brick. So I'm gonna put this aside. And resume some of the painting. I'm having trouble with red paint, and me just don't seem to get along. It's either too thick or too thin. Can't seem to get it right, so I'm sticking with the too thin and just kind of adding layer upon layer. So I've got, I don't know, another couple of layers left to go on the assault cannon. I've got the torso piece here with a shiny golden eagle. Got that extra little shield there. I need to clean, there's a little spot there on the torso that has a little red paint oopsie. Got the kind of the camera deal. So on my kill team, the kill team has these little cameras or optics or whatever, but you know, I've someone on Reddit pointed out that you can kind of clip them off and then reorient them to the way the Marine is facing. So, you know, for instance, something like, here's my newest kill team dude, and so you'll notice how the optics are kind of following the same sight line as the Marine himself, so it was a really good point, and I really like the air of dynamism it adds to the model. And so I can't do that to these guys because the head will be sticking straight out. So those cameras are staying where they are. But just another example of kind of the red, how it's, I don't know. I'm not a fan of painting with red. It's a beautiful color, but it fights me, and it usually wins. There we go. The Power Fist is coming along. It has its own couple of layers, and you'll notice it's got the pauldron. Remember how I sanded off the symbol that came on it? And so here's what it looks like. I mean, it's a little rough. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little rough. I suspect that once I kind of go over this with a silver dry brush and the kind of the silver paint here on the main elements, that it'll look okay, and the eye will be drawn away from kind of just how rough that looks. And you'll see how the shoulder pad's kind of janky. I need to get better at that, but I mean, just looking at it, it doesn't look so bad. And when it's on the model, I think it'll look okay. Here are the legs. I haven't put them on the base yet because I still need some stuff to work on the base, and I'm starting to do some of the edge highlighting. It's coming along pretty well. I kind of go back and forth on that edge highlighting. Sometimes it looks really nice, and sometimes I struggle with it. So I clearly just need more practice. And I don't mean just need more practice. I should just say I need more practice without the just. And it's not exactly the heavy metal style, because I'm really just doing the surface edges, like the very corners, as opposed to, on the surface, and you do it multiple times. I kind of like the more subtle. There's that, and the fact that I don't have the steady hands or the skills yet to replicate the heavy metal style. This is more my speed, and I think it gives it a good look. Maybe someday it'll be good enough to do a little heavy metal, but I haven't gotten there yet. So you can kind of see what it looks like on the one highlighted leg, and the one that isn't highlighted just looks a little, there's more going on there. And the back piece of the Terminator armor, there's nothing happening here. I haven't done any painting on this guy yet. This should be pretty easy to edge highlight. I'll probably move on to that as I start going. So let's do some more painting while I listen to live streams of another one of the YouTube celebs from 40K that I follow. It's nice to have her talking in the background. She's really knowledgeable on lore, and while she talks, I paint. Good times are had. Well, the painting is mostly done. I have done what I could for this base. Not quite sure I'm going to enjoy what it looks like, but I'm willing to let it kind of do its thing for now. But I'm assembling Brother Feurran. Still needs to do some touching up of a few details, but he's otherwise doing all right. So I'm going to assemble him. Oh, and I should have... Yeah, he goes in a very specific way, and if you don't get it right, he kind of has this crack on him. I am not really happy about it. Okay, I think is that it? I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but his chest armor doesn't close all the way, or his torso doesn't close all the way. There's that nasty gap there, and I just don't like it. Maybe, let me see. Well, I guess you don't see the gap. I don't know. I think it's gonna go. Just doesn't quite fit all the way. So I'm gonna have to make it happen. And the thing that's at fault is this back part right here. So you'll see how there's this ridge in the torso. And it's necessary if you're going to keep it as a snap fit model. That is not his destiny here. So I'm going to clip it away. don't need it, and it's in the way. I'm sure I'm not going to regret this. Just positive. So I hate to do this after it's already painted, but I don't see a great option right now. It's either that or just live with the fact that he's got that gap on his chest. Or, I'm sorry, on the sides. And since you're never going to see this part of him, that's fine. Just trying to make sure not to scratch any of the things that I want to keep. So now I should be able to just seal. Kind of like that. And so you see now, that gap is almost all the way gone. Trick is, will he fit? Yeah. Gotta jam him down a little bit, but he'll fit. I get to put some arms on him. I'm using plastic glue, so I'm going to have to kind of keep it pressed on for a bit. Ugh. Just afraid of handling this too much, and then some of the paint starts coming off. All right, time for the good stuff. All right, that's never moving again. So I'm going to fit him down kind of like this, so he's at least menacing his enemies as opposed to shooting in the air triumphantly like it's New Year's Eve. I'm using super glue. Why aren't you making contact? Oh, I just found a little spot on the shoulder pad that I need to touch up. Well, actually, I need to figure out what color that shoulder pad is. I think that's an Iron Hands chapter pauldron, but I'm not 100% sure, so I need to check on it. If it's Iron Hands, I just need to make the hand gray. But I need to double check. I also need to make sure there's no other chapter that uses a very similar icon, and maybe I could use that instead. Oh, I don't know why, but I always forget the heads on these guys. All right, time to paint some heads. giving some of these metallic parts a little bit of a red sheen. I've never tried that before. It kind of looks interesting. Might be too much on that one. Oh, on the brush. I've never tried it with this pauldron, so I don't know if it's going to look good. But fortune favors the bold, is what I've heard say. Figured, you know, he's walking on that red mud. It doesn't look half bad. Not half bad. I feel like the purity seals need a little bit more attention. They're a little on the pale side. I like to give them more, almost like a leathery look. It might be a touch of heresy. I don't know what these things are made of, but you know, Grox hide, right? Grox is a thing in this universe. All right, all that's left is the pauldron. I'm going to do some edge highlighting on the power fist. On the pauldron, if it's going to be a black pauldron, I'm not sure, but if it is a black pauldron, then I'll do some edge highlighting there. Then I'll give some attention to this mug, and that should be the end of that. Here is our Terminator friend. He's painted, he's assembled, he's got most of his details going. He's got a little thing to do with the shoulder pad and that awesome little bullet there that he's got that round. But before I do that, I need to paint off this base, and it's got crud from the texture paint, which is to be expected. So rather than just paint over it and let the surface be rough, I'm going to try to sand off that texture paint as gently as I can. I don't know if this is going to work, but I think it should. Just got to make sure I don't hit any of the top part that I do want. Oh, there he is. Brother Feurran, or whatever, however you pronounce it. He is the newest member of Your Average Bear's Deathwatch Army. He's going to be one of the Terminators that are either going to be part of the kill team or maybe someday as their own Deathwatch Terminator squad. He turned out better than I expected. Again, not as good as I had hoped. But I find these to be a little easier to paint than the normal Space Marines. Now, the job could have been cleaner. There's definitely things I need to work on as a 40K, Warhammer 40K painter dude. Stuff like blending, I don't have a handle on, maybe color selection, stuff like that. But for a relatively simple paint job, it's not bad. I do like his chapter pauldron. He's one of the Iron Hands, or he was from the Iron Hands. The back is fairly straightforward. Nothing to write home about. But he's fairly clean. I like the way he turned out. I think for the next couple of these, I'm going to be a bit more adventurous. Maybe try some different posing. I mean, I don't want to switch up the color very much because they still have to be part of my Death Marines army. The base, it's okay. Like, it could have been better. But the horrible yellow that was on there initially, and the white looked all streaky. It's gone now. A couple of coats of that yellow. I guess it ended up being a glaze, but it kind of a yellow glaze for the shingle work. Several coats of that. Then I gave it a good wash with some red tone. Anything that's peeking out of the Martian Ironcrust is red tone. So even the concrete has a bit of red tone. It's hard to see with this lighting, but yeah, and I gave the concrete pieces a bit of a little dry brush just to make those edges pop out. You can kind of see some red tone in the kind of the barrels and kind of the metal parts and the kind of the golden insignia stuff. So I didn't hit it everywhere, just the shiny bits. I thought that would be an interesting touch. It's not something I've done before, but you try something new, and it sometimes works out. Yeah, I think he's ready to shoot up some stuff. Kind of as an addendum here, I did a little modification here with his buddy, Brother Aramis. Not too much of a modification. I moved his arm down. It used to be kind of the hammer held high, but I moved that down a peg because when the hammer is held high, he doesn't fit in my storage case. I don't want to use like a tall storage case for him. He's not big enough for that. So just so he fits on my storage case, he's going to get, well, his arm is now glued there. He initially didn't have an insignia, the kind of the chapter specific insignia. I've made that modification as well, as long as I was here. And he's a member of the Black Dragons, which apparently was pretty heresy. They sometimes have adamantium claws, apparently. But I'm going to the web. There's this really cool website that has a pictorial explanation of all of the kind of Space Marine chapters that have been talked about. And so I'm using that to decide on the color patterns. It just so happens that, so I picked the insignia at random. I just reach into my little bits box and pick whatever comes out. And it just so happens that these first two Terminators have black pauldrons for their, their chapter colors, or black. And so the Black Hands have black and gray. I'm sorry, not the Black Hands. The Iron Hands have black and gray. The Black Dragons are black and white. So hopefully the next time I do one of these, I'll pick out a more interesting color so I can mess that up. And I'm just kind of looking at this a little critically. I like this base, this guy, better than this base. It's hard to. Yeah, I think it's because there's more of that structure left. I think if there was more of this. I think if there was more of this concrete stuff, I think this would look better. As it is, it's just kind of a gloop of red mud, and then, oh, he's standing on some concrete. This there seems to be a bit more. So next time I do one of these, I need to pay attention to that. And I do like. There's just a tiny little detail that nobody will ever notice, but me. If you look at where he's standing, his right foot, Brother Feurran, there's a spent bolter shell. It kind of glints, and I made sure to paint it to stick out. I used the bronze, which is different from different from the gold that the Terminator has on his armor. I wanted to stand out. The base originally had a ton of bolter shells kind of strewn all over the place, which is appropriate for that guy since he's going to make brrr sounds all day. But they're all buried in the mud there. That's a shame. So the one that survived on the surface of the concrete, that got highlighted. I think this guy had some as well, but I'm not sure. Yeah, he just had the I-beam sticking out. So that's it. That's number 2 of my Space Marines heroes. I think I'll switch around to a different project before I continue with these guys. It's been fun for sure, though, but I want to try something a little different. So if you watched this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you're entertained. And if you get the chance, be nice to someone, or this guy will come find you. Eat your treat. Eat your treat. Eat it. Eat it. Eat your treat.